Welcome to the Monday Morning Marketing Podcast for all decision makers and action takers. Take it away, Esther.
Welcome back. And I'm delighted to say that I have Phil Mershon with me today. But I must admit, I'm also here on my own. So you're not going to get the usual professional intro that you get from Esther, which is why she tends to do it, because I tend to flub it. So Phil Mershon helps organizations design unforgettable experiences that drive engagement, retention, and transformation. He's a director of experience at Social Media Marketing World and author of bestseller Unforgettable: The Art and Science of Creating Memorable Experiences. Phil has brought decades of insight into what makes events truly impactful in this book, and now he delivers practical inspiration that turns attendees into raving fans. That's quite a build-up, Phil.
That is. I don't know who that guy is, but I'm glad to be here.
Now, if anybody is a marketer here who's been doing this for more than 5 minutes, you would have heard of Social Media Marketing World. It's an enormous, it's like a play holiday for marketers over in the US. So that's got to be quite pivotal for you and in your career.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot by working with Social Media Examiner, putting on that conference. We're coming up on our 13th in April of this year, and I've been part of all of them and was the director over the entire thing for the first 11 years. And then I've been focused more on experience as I've launched my own business. And certainly this is like the playground where I've tried and learned a lot of things. We could not have had this interview 15 years ago when I started. I didn't know half the things that I know today. And you keep learning and refining like any of us do in the careers we have.
I mean, to have like a testing ground like Social Media Marketing World is not a small event. It's not a short event either. It's over several days. So today's chat is going to be about customer experience, which is obviously what you have completely, fully and understood by testing new tools and new theories and new strategies over the last 15 years. So for the listeners, is there like a 5-step plan or a 10-step plan that you could help people understand how to make their event, probably one of the best experiences that their attendees have ever had?
Yeah, when it comes to customer experience, it starts with, do you know your customer? I mean, basic marketing. Do you know who they are? What do they look like? What do they talk like? What words are they using? Where are they coming from? What demographics do they have? Because that helps you design an experience for them. Like in the world of events, one of the biggest risks that we have is we plan an event for ourselves instead of for our customer. And I think in marketing, we do the same thing. Like a lot of times the websites I go to look like they're talking about what they want to talk about as opposed to what's the language, the person who's finding them that doesn't know anything about them. What questions are they asking? And I think that you talked about a 5-stage. I think that's where customer experience starts is when they first find you. They found you through a search. They found you through AI. A friend recommended that they come to you. What is that experience like? What's your first impression? So at a conference, first impressions, in my opinion, matter more than almost any other because it sets the tone. It's not the thing that people will necessarily talk about when they go back home, but it creates a predisposition toward, oh, this is going to be interesting. I want to engage myself. And that's the same way. Like if you're in a conversation when you meet someone, if that first minute they grab your attention and say, oh, this guy has something to say. This lady has something to say. I want to know more. I'm intrigued. That's going to cause you to lean in. And I talk about the merry-go-round principle in my book, where if you're on a merry-go-round, if it's going too fast, it's going to throw you off or pull you to the middle. If it's going just right, you want to stay on the ride and enjoy it as long as possible. If it's going slow, you're going to step off because you're bored. So I think with events, you want to find that right pace. How do I keep people leaning in? How do I keep them on the ride? Marketing, how do you keep them on the website so that they find the thing that you're offering, the ways that you might be able to help them solve a problem? So that's a starting place. I'll let you ask questions.
Cool. So when it comes down to the customer experience, especially at events, I know that some people feel that is either too salesy or too lectury, or how do you find the hacky balance? Is it the particular speakers, or do you actually rein them in with instructions?
Well, I think it's first of all, you need to know what is the promise of the event. There are different kinds of events that exist. There are trade shows, which the primary reason people go is to meet the vendors.
Yeah.
So the content, the education there is secondary. If you're going to a conference like Social Media Marketing World, people are coming, number one, for the sessions, number two, for the networking, although they come back for the networking, not the content. So those are two different settings. And there's other kinds of settings as well. There's settings where the speakers have actually paid to be on the stage because they want to be able to bring people into their programs, so they're allowed to sell.
Yeah.
Social Media Marketing World, we don't allow you to sell on the stage, just create value. You can have a free offering at the end. So that is, someone who gets on stage and tries to sell an event like that will not be asked back. So there's usually pretty clear requirements of the speakers on here's what you can do, here's what we expect, here's how you can create the most value for the event. And I think I like putting it in that language because it aligns the speaker with the goals of the event as opposed to saying here's what you can't do. Because I think if you're punitive like that, they're less likely to step up and bring you their best. But I think, yes, you've got to set the expectation with the speaker. Align it with why are people coming to the event. I think those types of events tells you something about why they're showing up, but it maybe they didn't know I'm coming to a trade show. They saw that, Phil Mershon speaking at this event. They didn't know what kind of event that they're going to. Now they show up and Phil's like pitching them to death, and trying to get them to sign up for his program, which I don't do that, but there's plenty of people out there who do. That's a different experience and it affects the entire customer experience because that's not what I wanted, or it is what I wanted. I'm looking for resources. I'm looking for ways to up my game, professional development. There are those events where people go there and that's why they're there. They're looking, what's the next answer? How do I get better this year?
Yeah, there's a lot to cover actually. So for those people that are starting with brand new events, maybe they've been in business for a couple of years and they've been told by people like you and us, me and Esther, that, the best way to get sales is for people to meet you and literally you don't have to sell, you just use your own charisma and your own personality. So where do people start? Because I've spoken at events before, as have you, and we go up to the organizers and say, so who's your demographic? What statistics have you got? But if this is the very first event, how do we draw in top-notch speakers such as yourself, Phil?
Well, first of all, you probably aren't going to do it if it's your first 6 months or year, unless you've been doing this for a while. So, Joe Pulizzi was on my podcast last year, and he told me that he waited until he had 10,000 people on his mailing list
Wow.
before he talked about starting an event. So you got to put your time in building the relationships, both with your audience and with those speakers. Mike Stelzner with Social Media Marketing World, he spends a lot of time every day networking and talking to people and getting to know them before he ever starts a conversation about what I want to have you on my podcast, what I want to have you speak at the event. So network. Go to other people's events, show up for online events, show up on the social platforms of your choice and engage with people so they get to know you and trust you, so that when you ask, they already are predisposed to wanting to come join you. So ideally, you already know some of those key people before you say, I want to do an event. I consulted with an event last year and they had the people that they wanted, but they didn't have the audience. The audience wasn't ready for the event that they wanted to create. And so they ended up having to, shuck the event and do something different and lost money on it. It ended up being a good thing, hard lesson, expensive lesson, but they weren't ready. And I should have told them earlier, you're not ready, but they were willing to pay me. And, at some point it's like I got bills to pay, but I didn't realize at first either that they weren't ready. That wasn't obvious in the first two conversations. So yes, I think Know your why, know the people who you're wanting to serve, know people who can help you with that. When you reach out, it's an easy yes. I want to help Melanie because she's done this for me. You may have to pay people, certain people you'll have to pay, and that's a different kind of event too. Or speakers show up for exposure because they can get business by being at this event. They show up as a favor, like, it's your first event. They love you. They want to see you succeed, or they're paid, and they get paid their normal speaker fee or a discounted speaker fee. All of the above are valid types of events. You just need to know who you are and don't apologize for it.
Now, I also want to make it clear to those listeners, you don't all have to have 10,000 people on your email list. If you're only
No,
planning to invite a couple of hundred people to your first event.
no, that's just Joe said that, but he
Yeah.
wanted a 3,000 person event. I'd say if you get to your 500 or 1,000, fans, I would get that far before you try to have an event, unless you're just talking about a dinner party,
Yeah.
or something small, a workshop. You don't need a huge audience to do
Not for a
that.
workshop, no.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, you mentioned the email list, which I think is actually still the best way to market to people because you've got a lot of their personal details already, and they already know who you are. So it's so simple. But I do think having a podcast helps because people can see and hear your personality, even if you've never met them.
I
So
agree.
don't be afraid to get a podcast.
Or like I'm doing here, show up on other people's podcasts. So now, people in your audience know me. And when you
Yeah.
go on other people's podcasts, you're expanding the reach. The reason I think doing your own podcast is, one, serving your audience, but two, you're getting to know really interesting people at a deep level.
Yeah.
So if I've had you on my podcast and we talked for 30, 45 minutes and we really resonated and I saw that you have something to offer, it's going to be easy for me to say, hey, I'm putting on this event and thought you might be a natural fit for it. Would you like to come? And I did an event last November for MCs, and a number of the people that I brought to that event were because they were on my podcast or I've worked with them at other events. So I got some significant people to show up because the relationships I've been building for, a couple of years, and in some cases, many years.
And you don't have to go on to like Social Media Examiner's podcast. You can work your way up to that. And
Yeah.
it's quite an in thing, isn't it? People recommend other speakers as well, don't they? It's just make sure that you've got more to deliver than one message, because people start to get tired of the same conversation otherwise.
Absolutely. And usually you need something that makes you known.
Yeah.
What are you known for? Yeah, nuances on your message, but like customer experience is one of the things I'm really known for.
Yeah.
So it's natural that you brought me on your show. What are you known for as a marketer that's going to get other people to want you on their show? Having written a book makes it a lot easier to
I
get
can
people
bet.
reaching out and saying, hey, I want you on the show.
So let's say somebody has got a small team of friends or work colleagues or peers and said, look, we've all been in business a few years now. Let's start considering doing an event. Um, would you recommend like doing contracts, like a collaborative contract, or is this all going to be by handshake? Is there any sort of terms and conditions you could recommend to people if they're going to be running an event with other people?
I'm assuming you mean other businesses, not the
Other
people within
businesses,
their
maybe
own
you've
business.
all got the same audience, but you do something slightly different.
I definitely agree in having good fences, good contracts in place so that if things go sour, you've already talked things through on how you're going to divide things up, and what you're responsible for, especially around money. If it goes south and you're losing money, who takes the brunt of that? How's that going to work? Who's putting money into it, and what's the relationship? I think definitely recommend having some kind of agreement. It shouldn't be just, a gentleman's agreement, as we call it here in the States, a verbal. It should be something that's in writing. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that a lawyer drafted, but it needs to at least be enforceable. that if you showed it to a judge or someone outside, they'd be clear on, here's what you agreed to do. Here's what I agreed to do. Here, in the event something happens, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't have to be super complicated. And I think you could get AI to help you write a simple contract, and say, literally walk through, here's what we're doing. We need a simple contract to help us document our expectations, and then you can move forward.
So let's get down to the customer experience now. So we've built up to all
Okay.
this event, people have attended the event. So how do you get that customer experience and how do you action it?
So I like to think about customer journeys just like we do in marketing, right? You talk about a journey of someone finding you on a website all the way to your product and the fulfillment and the follow-up. Similar is happening with an event. So the customer experience, in my opinion, starts the moment they say yes. The moment they buy the ticket, they sign up for the free webinar, whatever that yes looks like. Prior to that, it's a marketing issue. And yes, there's experience related to marketing, but as far as I'm concerned, the way I look at it is I get to take over once marketing gets someone to say yes to the sale. Okay. So,
Great.
and that starts with the emails that you send. That starts with like you're preconditioning people. This is the kind of event I've signed up for. Now, if you've signed up 9 months ahead, I don't need to do a lot to get you excited because I need to re-energize you about 2-3 months before the event and start preparing you. 9 months, you're not even thinking about it. There's a lot of things happening between now and then. So emails, some kind of community. We use Facebook groups, but there's a lot of different ways that you can build community on social media or off social media. It depends on your business structure, but get people to know each other. So I think a lot of customer experience is about networking and community. If you can build that community before someone shows up, then they're far more likely to have a great experience. So thinking about all that preparation helps you then talk about the in-person experience. So we're going to focus mostly on that, but I wanted to make sure that you knew I think the event starts the moment they buy the ticket.
Yeah.
So let's just say last year we were in San Diego. I think that's where we met. You landed at the airport. That's when the experience starts. Now, when we were really big, we worked with the airport authority to have signs there that welcome
Oh.
you. Depending on the size of your event and your budget, you might be able to do something like that. If you're a smaller event, you're not going to do that. Where does the event start? Like if you're at a hotel and the event's going to be at the hotel, then when they pull up to the curb, you better have some people there. Like, but you want them to know this is the event. It doesn't start when they walk into the ballroom. And I've been to plenty of events where they think that's when it starts, but even there, they're not really expecting you. It's like, I had to find my way to the room. I got there and I'm an annoyance, and I'm a speaker at some of these events, and I'm an
No, mate,
annoyance
you
when
were
I
an
get
annoyance
there.
as a speaker.
Yeah. It's like,
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
we're so, we're glad you're here. Oh, and then they're focused on what they're doing. And instead of realizing, man, this event doesn't happen without a speaker. So your experience starts at the curb, whatever that curb looks like. And then as they walk in the door. So think about that doorway experience into the event. It can be the hotel, walking from the hotel lobby into your ballroom space, wherever you're meeting. So there's multiple doors that people are walking through. And you want to think about the experience they're having when they walk up to get their name badge. What's that experience going to look like? Is this event going to be something that's really more of a professional, people are here to get the information, just the facts. We just want to get stuff done, get in, get out. That has a certain vibe to it versus one where people really want to feel like they're part of a community, and having some fun while they learn is actually a good thing. That's going to have a different vibe. You're setting that vibe from the moment they walk in with colors, with the way that people greet them. The smells in the air, believe it or not, set a big tone on making something memorable and favorable.
All I
Unless
can
you have,
remember about social media marketing world is pretzels.
oh, interesting. Pretzels. Where did you get those?
At the entrance, where everybody was dancing and where the registration was. Both years I've been in
I didn't know
person.
there were pretzels there. That's
Pretzels.
funny. So you get big enough, people do things that you don't even know that they're doing, but they're doing it in light of the mission. So you talked about dancing. A couple of years ago, people walked away from our event saying the energy is missing. There's something wrong. So I recruited a guy named Chad, and we reimagined the way that we create energy. And it went from, a low score to a high score in terms of what people talked about and what they remembered. Dancing is not for everybody when they first show up. If you're introverted, you're shy, you don't know anyone, you don't necessarily want someone in your face, shoving a sign in your face or inviting you to dance. Some people they're ready for the party, as soon as they show, but others need to warm up to it. Some people will never be ready. So you got to also have staff that can read the room. So your customer experience is walking through those things. So in my book, I talk about 3 M's, and I think this is a good framework for you to think about the customer experience. So to make something unforgettable, it needs to be memorable, meaningful, and momentous. And so when I'm talking about memorable, I'm talking about creating moments that are unexpected, the surprise and delight kind of experiences that people have. It's something that's unexpected. It's something that maybe is unusual. I think one year Chad Peterson was riding a unicycle when people walked up. This coming year, we're going to have several different experiences that I can't give away because then it won't be a surprise.
No, that's fair.
Our MC Leslie Samuel was dressed as not Luke Skywalker, as Toy Story.
Woody?
Chad was Woody. So so you just have different things that are memorable that get people talking. So that's one thing that helps people remember what you did. The next is meaningful. How well do you know these people and the experience that you're creating for them? That's the customer journey that we're talking about. And what moment are they in that journey? And how do I help them move through it? How do they anticipate where they are emotionally, intellectually, physically? They may be worn out, and I'm asking them to do some deep thinking. That's probably not the best thing. How do I put them a frame of mind that they can actually engage it? These are the kinds of things you're thinking about in terms of an event experience. Like, how do I help people walk through if they're uncomfortable? 60% of the world is now known to be introverted. So if that's the case, they're getting their energy from being alone, then how do I give them the space to get their energy? And that's not necessarily related to their shyness. Like, that's a whole different thing. But I think because we went to remote work, there is a shyness that's around that wasn't there as much prior to the pandemic. So we have to be aware of both of those dynamics of where are they in this time of day, circadian rhythms, if you know about that. Mornings, we tend to be at our peak. Early afternoon, after lunch, we're all wanting to take that nap. Our energy is declining, and our best energy is going to be somewhere between 9 and 1 o'clock, and then things do decline. So you have to do things to counteract that in terms of the experience. So that's all part of meaningful, as you're paying attention to that. You also know, why did somebody come? What would it take to make this event amazing for them, to make this a true success? Can I anticipate that? And can I then, this is customer experience, can I create those moments that they're going to talk about? Someone's having a bad experience. Your staff needs to be ready to say, I want to take that experience and turn it around for you. They're thinking this in their head. So how can I solve this for you in a way that's going to exceed your expectations? And some of them are going to then go and talk about it. We don't do it so they'll talk about it. We do it to serve that person.
Yeah.
You want a culture where this is the mindset of, we want to do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. So I think that principle of service, if everyone bought into that one thing, doing for one person at a time what you wish you could do for everyone, it's creating micro moments. That has a way of infusing the culture of the entire event. You don't have to do something for everyone, because people will start turning around and treating each other differently. Their expectations will change. So anyway, memorable, meaningful, momentous is now you're paying attention to what moments make the biggest impact on customer experience. So I already said it's the curb, and I would say the curb to badge. So that welcome experience when they first arrive, to me, that's one of the most important experiences. The closing experience is one of the most overlooked. And it depends on events. Some events, everyone stays till the end, so you can have a really, pronounced closing. Other events like ours, people are starting to leave from noon to the end of the day because of flights. They've got to
Goes
get
down.
back home to family. They got another business commitment. And so you can see, 20-30% of the people leaving between noon and 5 o'clock. And it's like, that's just what it is. And that's, we try everything we can to say, you need to stick around this closing speaker. But the closing's another. I would say your first presentations are a big deal, like our opening keynote, your first workshop, your first whatever. Firsts are always important. And then you probably have some other thing happening. It might be a party. It might be a big announcement. So pay attention to what are those moments that are really going to matter, that are going to stand out. And then pay attention to what are those moments where people are going to slip through the cracks, fall off that merry-go-round, and have solutions for those. So I think if you take that framework and you put it together into a plan, now you're thinking about the person who's walking through it. How do I create memories for them? How do I make sure that I'm making it meaningful for them? And how do I pay attention to the moments that are going to matter for them and the moments that could make it unforgettably awful? Because we got to solve for those moments as well, right?
That sounds like a lot of work goes into actually training the staff and looking at troubleshooting issues and just trying to speculate all the possible scenarios that could crop up. And you'll have people who are, you know, neuroatypical, who might find it that overwhelm.
Mhm.
Other people may not be able to walk, so they may feel left out because they can't dance and the camera's too high and that sort of stuff. So there's so many things you need to think about. But I guess it's just that's why your book and your consultation have been so vital as a resource for people who want to organize these events.
I don't want to downplay myself, but I will say this. I tried to create a manual that solved for all the common problems at an event. Literally, we made a list of them, like 20 some different areas of the event. And we said, what are the main problems people are going to have? How are we going to anticipate that problem and solve for it ahead of time? What will be our standard response when it happens? And what does it look like to go above and beyond? Literally, there were like 100 different things. And we started trying to figure out, how do we teach this? And it was overwhelming. And that's when I met this guy, John DeJulius, and he had boiled it down to 8 never always principles that he taught his staff. And I think this is brilliant because people can remember 8 things. Even better, this year we made it 5. If you can teach your staff, the main people, like your core staff, yes, they need to be able to solve all those things that you just said. But if you're bringing in a bunch of volunteers or temporary staff, have some simple things that this is the way we do things. I'll give you a couple examples. We never point where to go. We always show. So we'll walk with you to get to where it is that you're trying to go. Never show your frustration in public. Always act like a duck. And if you know ducks, they are graceful on the surface, but their flippers are, going furious under the water. Yeah. So those are just a couple. Don't gossip out loud. Take your frustrations elsewhere. You're always on stage. So people are noticing if you're on stage. Take it to a back room if you've got something to gripe about where the customers don't experience it, and even the other staff. So I think if you can boil it down to the simple, this is the culture, the kind of culture that we want, then people can execute on that. And if something happens that's outside of that, they can find a leader, a manager, someone who knows, okay, we've got someone with, some handicap issues or someone who is, on the spectrum, and we can't anticipate with our normal solutions. Is there anything extra we can do? Then, that's the other thing. We equip people with, you can spend $5, give a coffee card. You can spend up to $25 if someone lost something. You have like certain things they can do before they need to escalate it to someone else in the organization.
Honestly, just thinking how organized and how many things you have to think about, it does sound quite overwhelming. But it's just as well there is a book. So where can we find this book, Phil?
Well, it's the one that you see on my shoulder right back. Whoops. I always get mixed up. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, really anywhere that you buy books in the world. It's called Unforgettable, The Art and Science of Creating Memorable Experiences. Do a search for it. You'll find it.
And is it available in different languages?
Chinese is the other language it's
Chinese.
available in. Yeah, that's odd. If you can see really well, right there is the Chinese book. I don't know why they're the ones that picked it up, but they did. So,
Okay. Well, thank you so much for today, Phil. That was a lot. But you have such a huge platform to work from to talk about the social media marketing world. Unfortunately, I can't make it myself this year. But who knows, maybe next year.
yeah, I
And
hope so.
let's let's just leave people with the 3 M's again. It should be easy to remember because we are the Monday Morning Marketing
Oh,
podcast.
there you go. Yes.
So tell us again. It's
Memorable,
memorable
meaningful,
and
and
momentous.
momentous.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So keep those in mind. That will definitely be going into missing letter when when this episode goes out. And if you've got any questions for Phil, you can visit him at philmersham.com for further details, or visit him through LinkedIn, which is how we connected.
Yes.
And we will be back with another episode next week. But if you've got any areas that you would like us to discuss, do let us know. But just before we go, Phil wants to sign off his way.
All right. The way that I do this, Melanie, is I'd like to ask you for 3 words that stand out from our conversation. And then I'm going to play a response on my saxophone based on the words that you come up with and try to make one of them an emotional word.
I think overwhelm was definitely top of my list.
Oh, no. That's
Um,
not good.
but purely because you gave so much information, which is very good of you. So thank you very much. Um, I think the strategy that you were discussing
Mm,
of the 3 M's,
mm,
it's actually really simple.
yeah.
And I love the way you were talking about training the staff as well. That it's a lot of things that people overlook. They're so worried about getting their role and the speaker sorted out, but the people who
Mm.
are the runners, the people who are running around looking after you, they can get overlooked. So I think it's an important area to cover.
All right. So basically, training, overwhelm, and simplicity,
Yeah,
the
basically.
framework. Okay. All right. Give me a second. I'm going to blow through this so your planner can, your recording producer can trim this out. Okay. I hope
Brilliant.
I hope everybody who's listened to this doesn't feel overwhelmed. I know I did share a lot, but I think if you step back, that framework can really help simplify it. Try to break whatever you do down to something simple that you can execute on, because otherwise you're going to get lost.
And ask for help. Don't do it all alone.
Yes.
Well, that's us for now, but we will be back next week. Have a great week.